Hello and welcome. Today we are doing the first installment of our Dominaria set review for all of the white cards. I am Tony Yeager. Here with me, as always, is my, well, I can't say partner in crime because plausible deniability. But we are here nonetheless to review one of the most exciting sets ever. Dominaria, of course. Before we begin, we're going to go over our grading scale. It does differ from the typical A through F scale. We find that it doesn't quite do everything we want it to do. We can know when cards are good or bad, but we don't know what roles that they're going to play in the decks that we build with them. So we wanted to build something a little bit more specific, iterate on that, and hopefully make things better for everybody. Paul's going to go over some of the highlights, and then we'll hop in. Things will become much more clear as we get a couple of cards in.
Yeah. Another thing, and the reason we built this whole system is because we've been referring to Magic when we explain it to people who don't know about it, that it's kind of like a mixture between poker and chess. And so that's what we're kind of going off of. It's just a chess kind of based system that's going to help hopefully make things a little more intuitive for new players who are just getting into the game.
Yes.
We're going off of pawns being things that you use and see a lot of in your deck. Rooks being definitive pieces and finishers. Knights being evasive threats. And bishops being tempos, plays, removal, and ways to attack the game other than using creatures. Queens are going to be those big bombs that really impact the game and kind of take over things. And kings are going to be those build-around cards that are really specific to the strategy that you're going to use to win the game.
Mm-hmm. And again, as we get deeper in, things will make a lot more sense. So instead of talking about it, we're going to hop right in. Start with Adamant Will, which is 1 and a white, instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible until end of turn. Paul, what do you think of this card?
I feel it's more that bishop slot that we were talking about. It affects the board in kind of an indirect way. It affects combat math indirect, well, and consequently it also creates an effect called indestructible, which means the creature can't be destroyed or die due to damage. It can still be killed with -1/-1 counters, and it can still be exiled. But it does help keep one of your really nice threats around. And helps maybe even finish the game sometimes. So I feel bishop pretty borderline powerful.
Yeah, especially at common, when you've got 1 and a white held up, it's going to make it really difficult for your opponents to attack in. This is a solid card, but it does assume that you've got creatures in play, and if you're behind, there's going to be an issue. So we'll want 1 to 2 of these in the deck, I assume, but I will generally play this card. Next up is Adamant Sentry, 3 and a white for a bird soldier. It is a 3/2 with flying.
Now there's some more of those knights, evasive threat, it's in the air. Kind of your standard vanilla knight, though. You're getting your mana's worth essentially for a 3/2 body in the air. So 3 power and an ability for 4 mana. That's pretty staple for Magic.
Yeah, it's not exciting, but we will absolutely play it. Next up is Baird, Steward of Argive. Yeah. Argive. Argive. Ooh, we're getting fancy. Baird is a legendary human soldier, a 2/4 with vigilance, and creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. We've got Ghostly Prison on a stick.
It's beautiful. I got a commander deck that's screaming for this. I feel this is more that rook position. It's answer me now. I'm going to kind of take over the board. Essentially, in a kind of indirect way. It taxes them, causing them to have to spend more resources to play their cards, and it lets you set up a little more quickly.
A cornerstone of your strategy, I'll play this in every white deck in however many quantity I can get. Next is Banished Honor Guard, 1 and a white, human knight for a 2/2 that gets +1/+0 for each legendary creature you control.
Feel this is a pawn. It's pretty much staple. It can be mediocre if you don't have the build around, if you don't have the historic items to really pump it up. If you do have the ability to, or you do have all the cards to kind of build around this and make it better, it will be a powerhouse. Other than that, it is kind of one of those bears.
Yeah, the truth is we've all played cards like this. We will all continue to play cards like this. It's not exciting, but if you need a 2 cost, it's great. The next is Banalish Marshal. It is white, white, white for a human knight 3/3. All creatures you control get +1/+1.
Now, I feel this is another rook. It is kind of a cornerstone piece that's going to just pump the entire team. It is a great card because it doesn't have any like specific lord or creature type that it lords over, while being a little difficult to cast with the triple white. If you're heavy in white already, this is a great include.
Yes, it's a very powerful card. With it, you want to be really deep in white, so it's going to be much better if you draft it early, because then you can just key in, I need to be white, I need to be white, I need to be white. It's very powerful, but because it's hard to cast, it's going to suffer just a little bit. Great card, be careful with it.
Yeah.
Next up is Blessed Light, 4 and a white for an instant, exile target creature or enchantment.
This is that bishop again, the kind of removal tempo he plays. This is great because it is exile and not destroy. There isn't a lot of removal in this set as it is, and this is a little high on the curve, so we'd only want to play 1, maybe 2.
Yes. One thing to keep in mind is that it does look expensive. 5 cost for a fairly generic removal spell is a lot. However, there are a lot of cards in this set with kicker. It looks like we're going to be incentivized to be playing 18 and sometimes even 19 lands. So the higher mana cost might not be something that we'll be punished for. This is just a card that we're going to see how good it is as the format develops, because it's really hard to tell without playing it. That said, we are going to be streaming Dominaria before we head out to our local pre-releases. It's going to be, I think they're running sealed leagues starting on Friday. So as soon as we can be online, join us at twitch.tv/Dread Specters, and we'll be bringing you literally the first look of Dominaria Live. Next card is Board the Weatherlight. It is 1 and a white for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a historic card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, historic is a new thing. If you haven't seen it before, artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. So you can get any one of 3 different card classifications. Sagas aren't a new card type, but we're not going to talk about that until we see one. In short, this is a tutor that just kind of looks for something. Paul, what do you think?
I think another great bishop. Super great. 2 mana, yes, but it lets you look 5 cards deep. Lets you get a legendary or an artifact, and there are a lot of really great of both in the set right now. I think it's a pretty powerful bishop.
Yes, I will play every copy of this that I see. Next is Call the Cavalry. 3 and a white sorcery. Create 2/2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance.
Pawn, definitely pawn. That makes pawns.
Yeah.
It's great. You're getting worth, which can't get much better than that.
No.
Traditionally, the only thing that really ever got worth or value was green for your mana. So it's a really nice change of pace, seeing a lot of power for the mana you're spending.
Yeah, I'll generally play it. 2/2 bodies are fine, respectable.
And then vigilance.
Yes, vigilance is also going to be pretty good as well. We'll see exactly how good this card is, but my pre-release, I will play it.
Oh yeah,
if I'm in white.
If you're in white.
Next is Charge. White for an instant. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
Another bishop card. It's going to affect math. If they're able to go white, really, really wide, then, this is a great card because 1 mana for even 3 creatures is a great return on your mana spent. If you're going really wide, it just increases exponentially as you go. 1 or 2 at most in the deck, just to kind of throw it off.
Exactly. This is a card that demands that you've got a lot of creatures, which means that you're probably either going to have a lot of cheap creatures or have some really good card draw. And this is a classic bishop. A bishop is anything that attacks the game in a different way than your opponent is expecting or makes it more complicated for them. So this is going to make for some difficult decisions and some easy blowouts if you can build the deck that this wants to be in. Davenant Trapper, 2 and a white for a human archer, 3/2. Whenever you cast a historic spell, tap target creature an opponent controls. And again, historics are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas.
Yep. Another really great bishop, kind of attacking the game in a little different way, tapping down one of the opponent's creatures every time you cast a heroic or legendary creature spell. So it's all right. Definitely a build around. A lot of these cards are build arounds. If you don't get the cards to support them, they become mediocre. With the cards to support them, they synergize really nicely together.
Yes, this is a card that I can take or leave. If I've got a whole lot of artifacts and things like that, fine. But this is a card that wants to be in an aggressive deck. It wants a lot of very specific things, and you're just not going to get there sometimes. So be cautious about taking this in draft. Always look at it in sealed as a build around. Danitha Capuchin Paragon. 2 and a white for a legendary human knight. 2/2 with First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, and Aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
This I love.
Classic
Everything.
king,
Yep. Classic.
comma, knight.
Classic. You could definitely build around this card.
You don't have to. She can just be a powerful card.
Yeah, and she supports. She would be really great in any deck that's already running a lot of equipments, which there are a couple really great ones in the set.
And all of the auras that we've seen, and we'll get into some more later. All of the auras that we've seen have looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
So definitely a card you're gonna want to run.
Especially if you're on that plan, of course.
No, great card. You'll play it in any deck. You will want to look around it as a build around. Daring Archaeologist. This is a very Zendikar looking card. 3 and a white human artificer. 3/3. When Daring Archaeologist enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. That's kind of sweet. Whenever you cast a historic spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Yeah. So you essentially, even if you have like a 0 cost or a 1 cost artifact, and you have a little bit of mana to play with, you get to have him come down as a 4/4 essentially. Great card. Definitely another king. Definitely a build around. You want to have the legendary and the artifacts and the sagas to really support him and make him big and make him the threat that you want him to be.
Now, every pack is going to have at least 1 legendary card in it, so being able to cast historic spells is possible even if you don't have very many or even any artifacts in your hand, or rather in your deck. I'd probably just play this card because 4 for a 3/3 with fringe upside is generally going to be a good card.
Yeah.
Dauntless Bodyguard. White for a human knight creature 2/1. As it enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control. Sacrifice it. The chosen creature gains indestructible until end of turn. This card's neat.
Yep, this is a powerhouse pawn, I think, man. I love this. 2/1 for 1 already on board. You give me an upside, protect one of my legendary creatures. Thank you.
We haven't talked about flavor at all, but This is an absolute flavor win. Pawns are meant to be sacrificed for the larger plan. This is a great card. I will play it in just about any white deck.
Oh, yeah.
Dub. 2 and a white, Enchantment Aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has first strike, and is a knight in addition to its other types.
I like it a lot. 3 mana for all of that. So thank you. And there are already a lot of Night Lords in the set. So this is just spectacular, especially in Limited. If you get any of those pieces that are going to pump the Knights, this is going to be definitely an include into that deck. I think it's a pretty good, moderate to powerful bishop.
Now, this is 1 and a white with Denethor, so this is going to be one of those cards at common that you'll probably just see with her. It has the drawback of only giving her +2/+2, but there are other, as we'll see, there are other knight synergies that's going to push this card kind of over the edge. Evra, Halcyon Witness. Haha. 4 white, legendary creature avatar. 4/4 lifelink. Pay for, exchange your life total with Evra Halcyon Witness's power. Paul, how does this card work?
So, ideally, what you want to do is just switch its power with your life total while you're still higher or high, at full life, and essentially get all of that back in lifelink. It does, though, make you very squishy to removal, because if they're able to kill it after you've resolved the ability, you get no life link from a creature that deals no damage, and then you're at 4.
Yeah, I'm just thinking this looks really like Cynic Magic here. I'm going to swing in on turn 7 for 17 damage and just lose it.
Yeah, or win it.
But yeah, I mean, you slap Arcane Flight onto it.
Or, and the thing is as long as you're not using the exile spell, you've got the white card that we saw in the beginning. It gives you +2/+2 and indestructible. So hopefully you're swinging in with protection. If not, it's a gamble. You're rolling the dice. It's a great queen, though. I love it.
Yes. You're going to want to give it flying.
Make it evasive.
It is a high-risk, high-reward card. I will play it in every white deck when I open it. So
definitely a great queen.
Yes, and you don't have to switch life totals like incidentally.
4 damage is great.
You just can and gain 4 life. So overall, great card. Excavation Elephant, 4 and a white creature elephant, 3/5 with a kicker, 1 and a white. Keep in mind the kicker needs to be cast cost paid. There we go. The kicker cost needs to be paid as you cast the card. So it either costs 4 and a white or 5 white. If you pay it, if you did pay, oh good lord, when it comes into the battlefield, if you paid the kicker cost, there we go. Return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand.
So this is more of pawn level power with an upside if you're already on that plan. It does have a really big butt, so if you're looking for a slow, grindy game, this is great. Maybe have a big butts and a flyer.
Yeah.
Pretty much what this would do good in.
Exactly. I will play this card. In general, I'd like to have artifacts, but not having to have it is great. So a lot of the creatures in this set have 3 or 4 power, and so this is going to be a great blocker for you, if nothing else. Fall of the Thran. This is our first saga card. The way these things work is when you cast it, it triggers that first ability, which in this case is 5 and a white enchantment, destroy all lands, and then the second and third abilities trigger after your draw step. So it looks like in between the draw step and your pre-combat main phase. It triggers each player returns 2 land cards from their graveyard to the battlefield. Paul, what do you think about this?
I like it. There is probably going to be a really, really aggro-y red-white deck out there that's going to be really low to the ground that's going to love this card. Sideboard, of course, if they're on essentially those high-cost kicker creatures and you just want to get underneath them and stay underneath them. This is going to reset the game at turn 6 and essentially force them to eat all of that damage in the mouth as long as you can keep their board clear. Yeah, the big guys before then. A little late on the curve being 6, but for this ability, and if you're on that plan, this would be really just a game ender.
Yeah, this is a really good illustrative way of kind of summing up the whole set. You can really, it feels like you can do anything with this set. Paul, for example, Paul favors really low to the ground aggressive decks, whereas I am looking at all of the kicker cost decks going, I can't wait to run 19 lands and just see what grand things I can do. This is going to shut off my entire deck if I'm doing that. If I was able to put together the kicker cost deck, I just lose to this card. So there's a lot in this set that's great. Instead of being generically powered, this is something that you kind of just want to play conditionally. Any more thought? Do you have any more thoughts on that one?
No. The set in general just seems really swingy.
Absolutely. Next is an oldie but a goodie. Gideon's Reproach, 1 and a white instant. It deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature.
Okay, this is another bishop card. It's okay. 4 damage for 2 mana. That's pretty great. Attacking or blocking clause is meh, but good removal in a set that doesn't have a lot of it.
Yes, and the thing that I wanted to point out with Gideon's Reproach is that it is infinitely more playable than Divine Verdict was in, say, Rivals of Ixalan draft. Holding up 2 mana is way less suspicious than holding up 4. This is going to be really good in the early game. Overall, very good. This is a very powerful bishop card, if a little generic. Healing Grace costs white for an instant. Prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn by a source of your choice. You gain 3 life.
So, another bishop card. This is mediocre. Prevent 3 damage to any target is nice. Usually those effects affect only creatures. At least recently, in recent history. So you can deflect and maybe prevent one of your planeswalkers from dying and subsequently gain a little bit of life and offset any damage they might be getting through. So again, a mediocre bishop.
Yeah, this can also be used as just the worst combat trick ever. But that's something that you can do. I'm not excited about this card. I know for a fact that in Grand Prix Vegas, I'm going to be having this in my deck because I don't play Limited in Vegas without playing... I was just about to say bad cards. Cards like Healing Grace, moving on. History of Bonala. This is quite the contrast. 1 white for an Enchantment Saga, chapters 1 and 2. So when you cast it and after your draw step the next turn, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. Chapter 3 is knights you control get +2/+1 until end of turn.
This is a great bishop that makes pawns.
I've got goosebumps here.
Like,
this is
one of those build around. If you're building on knights, this is just going to push your game really into the next level. Especially if you're already building, like if you have a couple knights already on the board when you play this card, it's just going to, they need to remove it right now.
Yeah, this is a mythic, so you're not going to see much of it, but it's also an enchantment, and who's going to play enchantment removal? It's not like this is Rivals draft or anything. If you're in white, Play it when you see it. That's it.
Yeah.
Invoke the Divine. 2 and a white instant. Destroy target, artifact, or enchantment. You gain 4 life. Sideboard card?
Yep, sideboard card. Definitely a great sideboard bishop. If they're on the Saga plan, then you get to kill them. Oh, at least the Saga.
If they bring in History of Benalia, by gum, you're going to want to invoke the Divine.
You definitely are. All in all, great sideboard card, especially if they're on the plan. And as we've seen, there is already some enchantment or enchantment-based removal in the set. So we got a little bit of it, and we're going to see a little bit more.
Yeah, it's fine. The fact that it hits both artifacts and enchantments is going to be good as well.
Yeah.
Knight of Grace is next. Sweet card. It's 1 and a white for a human knight. 2/2 with first strike. Hexproof from black. That's a new ability we've never seen, but it's pretty self-explanatory, I like to think. And then Knight of Grace gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a black permanent.
Nice. Love it. It's a knight. Evasive. It's a hexproof from black, which is kind of similar to the...
Protection?
The Protection Knights. What set was that from?
They're old alpha, beta. Maybe not alpha, beta, but Black Knight and White Knight.
Yeah.
Classic cards.
Classic cards. They had protection from the other color. This is great, especially if you're on Black White Knights, which is going to be an archetype.
That is a good note. Your own permanents your own black permanents can pump it.
Remember that in Sealed when the pre-release hits, because it's going to matter.
Yes.
Great cost already with the bear and first strike. Love it. Hexproof. A lot of the other removal, or a lot of the only removal in the set was in black. So this is going to be really resilient against all those people who like to be really heavy in the removal factory.
Absolutely. It's a powerful pawn.
Yeah, powerful pawn.
Here we have a less powerful pawn in Knight of New Benalia. 1 and a white for a human knight, 3/1.
So I like it just because of the knight synergies in the set. So it turns those staple 3/1 pawns into something even better. So I like it in terms of the set. As for a 3/1 in general across all of Magic, it's a meh.
In my eyes, this card has, let me get my hand out of the way of the power and toughness. This is the only piece of text that matters. Yeah. It is a knight.
Yeah.
It's a 3/1, which is fine for 2 mana, but it is a knight. So if you get History of Benalia or any of those knight synergies, you're going to play it.
Cooking with gas.
Yeah, that's it. Quendi, Pride of Femoris. 3 and a white, legendary human knight. 2/2 with double strike. Creatures you control with first strike have double strike.
This is a tasty knight. That's what he is. A lot of the knights already have first strike. A lot of the soldiers, because they're legendary, also have first strike. So this guy is just going to pump a lot of those legendary creatures and just make them infinitely better. Being a knight himself, he's going to synergize with those other synergies as well. So all in all, I think this is an amazing knight class card.
Yes, and there is a lot of a rook hood in it as well. It's you're going to want to have other cards that have or give first strike, like that enchantment we saw earlier, Dub, Danitha, our king in the first strike chessboard here, is going to want Quendi, Pride of Femoris as well. In general, 4 for a 2/2 double strike is a little expensive, but with a couple more cards, and it's not going to take many, 4 or 5 more first strike havers or givers is going to turn this into a great card. Next is Layla Dawnbringer, Our Liege. 3 white for a legendary creature angel, 5/5, flying, first strike, lifelink. Other angels you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink.
This is a queen of the highest order, my friend. She is amazing. There are already a lot of angels in the set. Giving them not only a buff, but lifelink just really pushes her over the top. Love this card. If you see her, you want to pick her up.
Yep.
And you don't want to see this against you.
No.
Hate draft it.
Hate draft it. And then switch over into white. You can be in blue, green, open this pack 3 and go, all right, I'm in band.
I'm in band.
Yeah. Mesa Unicorn, 1 and a white for a creature. You called it Unicorn. 2/2 with lifelink.
Yeah, that's great. Grizzly Bear with lifelink. Love it. Scottish national national animal. I guess
Yes, that's true. I'd forgotten about that. It is a bishop soldier, comma, unicorn. Here we are on Saras Wings. 3 and a white, legendary Enchantment Aura. Enchanted creature is legendary and gets +1/+1 and has flying, vigilance, and lifelink. It turns any 4/4 into Lyra Dawnbringer.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is another powerhouse bishop card. This is gonna really the Voltron red-white deck is gonna be pretty powerful, I think. Mm-hmm. They're just gonna stack a whole bunch of enchantments on single creatures and let them swing.
Yeah. Or even a bunch of enchantments
ones,
and tricks on multiple creatures. Mm-hmm. That deck is going to want to go white, I think. So you're going to have some wiggle room there.
Flying, vigilance, and lifelink is just amazing.
Yeah, no, this is a card you'll play in any deck with white in it. Mm-hmm. And for the first little bit, depending on how fixing is going, I am willing to treat this as I treated Mark of the Vampire and One with the Win in Ixalan, as I will splash white just for this card.
Just for this card, yeah.
Pegasus Coarser, 2 and a white, creature Pegasus, 1/3 with flying, and whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gains flying until end of turn.
This is a great knight.
Yes.
It's evasive, flying, and it gives another one of your creatures flying. Perfect. It might die if they have something in the air as well, because they're not going to want, your big bomb thing flying over twice. But, as long as you can get something over at least once, it's still getting its worth. Great cost, too, at the 3 slot instead of the 4, which is, they could have probably and have done in the past something similar to this. In a higher mana cost. So I love that it's in the 3. I love that it's in the air. And I love that it gives another creature flying. Great card.
Mm-hmm. This is common, so you're going to see it with some frequency. Part of what I actually like about this card is that it is a 1/3, so it's not going to be doing a lot of damage itself to your opponent's creatures. So it creates this tension where your opponent both does and does not want to remove it. Mm-hmm. Overall, I like it. It does have some constraint with where you're going to want to build your deck, and we'll explore that as we stream this set, which we're very excited to do.
This is going to be so amazing.
Next is Sanctum Spirit, a really controversial card. We have had some discussions about this card, and our review of this card is very tentative. Mm-hmm. We have no idea what to make of it. Sanctum Spirit, 3 and a white for a creature spirit, 3/2 with lifelink. Discard a historic card. It gains indestructible until end of turn.
So this has the potential to be a pretty powerful rook, an Answer Me Now card. Mm-hmm. But you would really have to have the grave recursion to be able to really dip into those cards that you're discarding to get the indestructible ability out of it. Which would make it powerful. Lifelink 3/2 for 4 is just mediocre because it trades with anything and everything, essentially, unless you're discarding that card. So it's really, is it worth discarding this artifact or legendary creature to keep my 3/2 lifelinker alive? Yeah. So all in all, mediocre. Could be powerful if you have the right cards to build around with it.
Exactly. This is a card that I will play. I will play very frequently. I'm also going to activate its ability way more often than any of us are going to want to admit for distinct card advantage. And I think it's just going to be a fine card. It's going to I imagine that it's going to play more of a pawn role than anything, but it has the potential to have some great upside depending on your deck. And that was a good point with the reanimation as well. Discard Grizzlebrand, reanimate is a great strategy. And we'll see if that's possible, probably in the black set review. Seal Away, probably the best removal spell in the set. 1 and a white for an enchantment with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target tapped creature an opponent controls until Seal Away leaves the battlefield. What do you think?
I agree with you completely. This is probably the best removal card in the set right now. It is that enchantment-based removal that I was talking about earlier. That's really powerful. Anytime you get flash and exile together, it's amazing. Traditionally, this has been a little higher. I like that they lowered the cost and added the clause of tapped. It is going to not get any of those vigilant creatures, knights in particular, but it's going to get pretty much everything else.
Yes, that's a great point. You will board this out against white decks, particularly knight decks, which will be black-white, with some frequency, but it's a solid card. We played all of the stasis snares, which cost 1 more. And we'll play a lot of these cards as well. There is potential for eternal play here. I can absolutely see playing this in modern, and it will definitely see play in standard. Next is Sergeant at Arms, 2 and a white human soldier. Should have been a knight, I feel. But it also makes soldiers. I don't really understand. Anyway, human soldier, 2/3 with a kicker, 2 and a white. So we're looking at 4 white for a 2/3 that also makes 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. We're looking at 4 power, 5 toughness for 6 mana.
And this is traditionally what you would see for any other color other than green. You would see a little diminishing returns essentially on your mana spent. This is a standard magic card right here. This is in a set that's super overpowered. This is kind of the guy that's just in the corner without a dance partner.
Yes, in any other set, I believe that this would be an utterly mediocre card and one that I would never play. The difference with Dominaria is that we are playing Magic as Richard Garfield intended for the first time in decades.
Yeah, quite a bit.
So everything is coming across as a little bit overcosted, but that allows us to have some really just ridiculously powerful cards later on. And we're going to see that as we get into other colors and into the multicolored as well. I imagine that this is going to be a fine card, if not particularly good. Again, it's a miss on the creature type and is kind of blah.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be proven wrong. I hope that it's good. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Sarah Angel, the card that needs no introduction, so we'll move on. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Sarah Angel.
I was gonna say, this card has a very close or personal part of my heart.
Teenage Paul loved this card, didn't he?
This was the card that when you played Magic as a kid, this is what won the game.
This was the real stuff back in the day, and we're going to see if it's the real stuff now. Sarah Angel, 3 white for a 4/4 flying vigilance. What do we think?
Like I said, near and dear to my heart. This card won me many a game as a kid. In the set, though, and a set that's this powerful, it's going to be just a normal staple knight. Flying evasive, the vigilance is nice.
The most important part, I think, with this is that it's a 4/4. A lot of the creatures are 3/3s, have 3 or power or toughness. That's I don't have the numbers to back that up, and I should. But there is a lot of 2 and 3 power and toughness in this set, and I think Sarah Angel is going to be a very powerful card. Pick it early if you're in white, and although the thing about it is it's not going to pull you into white, solid, you'll play it in every deck that you're playing white. Sarah Disciple, 1 and a white for a creature, Bird Cleric, 1/1 with flying and first strike. Whenever you cast a historic spell, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. How bad is this card?
It's not. It's okay. For a knight, if it didn't really have the synergy there with the historic, it would be meh. You could enchant it, make it a little better with the first strike and the flying. But if you do have the historic and legendary creatures, this can be just get out of hand. That first strike is going to make things a little difficult for people.
Okay, so what it sounds like to me is that this is, at its very base, a pawn. Flying first strike chump blocker is sometimes going to do well. However, if you're willing to or able to build around it with the historic spells, and specifically cheap historic spells, since it gets the bonus until end of turn, it can top out as a solid knight.
Yeah, it can.
Sounds good. Here we have Shalai, Voice of Plenty, a card that I am going to hate playing against. 3 and a white legendary creature angel, 3/4 with flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. 3 green. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Oh, I hate this card. I'm going to play it every game I see it.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think?
It's an amazing king. This is a build around. You're going to be locked into white-green. That's why it's a king and not a queen. As balmy as it is, getting a 3/4 in the air for 4 is just amazing. Making everything hexproof is like, well, that's some really nice icing. And then that beautiful cherry of adding some counters to each of your creatures that are already really difficult to target is just a really great upside. But it is a build around, so it is a king.
Exactly. Great card. Next is Teshar, Ancestors Apostle. 3 and a white, legendary bird cleric. It is a 2/2 with flying. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This
is another amazing king. If you're on the historic build, this is just going to do all the things that you wanted to do. A lot of these legendary creatures were 3 cost. A lot of these artifacts are also 3 cost. So this is going to be a great build around.
We're seeing a lot of these historic synergies in white. And there are going to be 2 major build arounds in white, just from what we've seen right now, without looking at the other colors, is the historic kings and rooks. And the historic and the knights. Rooks and kings as well. White looks to be good. White looks just to want historics and a lot of small creatures. We haven't seen a lot of beef at all. Next is Tragic Poet. Wonderful card. It is white for a 1/1. Tap and sacrifice it. Return target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand.
This is either an okay pawn or an amazing pawn. If you're on the enchantment game already planned, then this is what you want. You want all of these things. And that's because because they're going to remove your cards. And your creatures are going to die, your enchanted ones. And you're going to want to recycle those enchantments from your graveyard, especially like Saras Wings, because who doesn't want to replay that card? So this is definitely a snatch an immediate grab if you've got already any amount of great enchantments.
Yes, and another note on this card is that it also brings back sagas, which almost every single one of them that we've seen just are fantastic. So this is going to be a very powerful card if you've got any of those. Triumph of Gerard. First time I saw this card, I got goosebumps. The Weatherlight Saga, when I was in junior high, was the best, and the whole thing was just Gerard just being awesome, and here we see him doing the same thing. Triumph of Gerard is 1 and a white saga. Chapters 1 and 2 are put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power. And then chapter 3 is target creature you control with the greatest power gains flying first strike, and lifelink until end of turn. Beastly card, 2 cost is insane. What do you think?
I love this card. And of course, yes, Gerard. Oh man. The deck that a lot of these cards are going into has him in it. So it's going to be a flavor win for the deck. I love this card. 1/1 counters, make my big guy batter, and then creature, that creature, or whichever one you want, gets a whole lot better. Great card for the cost. I love it. Great bishop.
It is also historic. It also pumps everything. This is the quintessential white card in this set. Urza's Ruinous Blast, I think, wraps us up here. It is a legendary sorcery, which means that it can only be cast if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker. And of course, all planeswalkers are now legendary.
Yeah.
It is 4 and a white. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Paul, what do we think?
I think this is an amazing sideboard card. If they're on the legendary creature plan with you, then this is a waste of 5 mana and a dead card in your hand. If they're on like the kicker cost plan, which didn't have a lot of the legendary creatures in it, then you could really use this to great effect, because it could be asymmetrical board wipe.
Yes. One thing to note is that this will kill sagas. Those aren't legendary. That was a surprise to me to find out as well. So it is a clean answer for sagas as well if your opponent has a few of those running around. Great sideboard card.
Great.
This is our last card, our White Land Memorial to Glory. It enters the battlefield taps to add a white mana to your mana pool, or is 3 and a white, tap and sacrifice it to create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens.
Math card, again, creature type miss. You'll play it just because, it's a white mana and has an upside. Instant speed soldiers are nice, especially in a pinch. So it could be a little, backup plan that they're not going to think about and save your life and maybe end up winning you a game. Most of the time, though, this is just going to be a white mana that does nothing.
I will, however, play it in I'll play as many as 2 of these tapped lands in this cycle, and there's 1 for each color. I will play as many as 2 of them in any one of my decks where they're in color. Because instead of having 22 or 23 usable effects in the deck, this just gives an extra 1 for free, because we're going to play lands anyway. So this is a good way of getting some value with very little cost for including it in the deck. So that actually concludes our very first episode of the Dominaria set review. Tune in tomorrow when we are going to be doing Blue